you very much. May I start with a question? How many of you have ever ridden a hot air balloon? It's the most incredible experience, isn't it? And for me, what blew my mind is that there was no wind. Because I was the wind. And when we live in this age of incredible change, I think the biggest challenge we have is that we don't realize the change that's going on around us, because we are part of that change, just like in the hot air balloon. Think how Uber's changed our life. We've all suddenly got a different experience the way we have a cab, but what I love to focus on is the fact that now they were the first company where the driver is scoring us. My score, by the way, is 4.87. I'm still trying to find the driver who docked me a point. But I also find myself being nicer in an Uber car because I know I'm being scored. What also is interesting is very few businesses have taken that idea and brought it in themselves. How many of you are Amazon Prime holders? Every one of you. Let me ask you, the last time you ordered a new product from Amazon Prime, using Amazon Prime, how many of you actually looked at a review before you bought the product? Look at you, all of us. What Amazon did, they completely changed the way we shop. They completely changed the way marketers have to think about their brands. They actually put the brand completely in your hands. Airbnb is shocking the hotel industry today. And I believe the reason why they're shocking the hotel industry, and have any of you tried Airbnb? The last time I did, I went to San Francisco, and my host, who I was emailing with beforehand, he not only told me the name of the restaurant I should go to, but he also told me the name of the waiter I should ask for. That is impossible for us hoteliers with 400 rooms to try and replicate. And industries are having huge difficulty in trying to think about that. They're also having difficulty because if you're part of a big company, and if you're part of an established company, we have so many rules and regulations and policies and procedures that get in the way of every single thing that we try to do. I'm fascinated by Tesla. In 2008, they came out with their first all-electric car. It was $80,000 to $110,000, far too expensive for mainstream. Now, if I had been a CEO in Detroit, in Germany, or in Japan, I'd have instructed my innovation team figure out an electric car for $35,000 within 3 years. What happened? Tesla came out 8 years later with the first $35,000 electric car. They just announced it. Isn't that incredible that the rest of the motor industry couldn't actually find the solution? And what really blew my mind was when I saw an ad the other day for Bentley. Bentley, established, expensive, proud. They have just gone into the SUV business. And guess what they've gone and done? It's a diesel engine. Think about the powers and the innovation of a company like Bentley, and they're coming out with diesel, which is about to be banned in Europe. But here they are, proudly announcing it. On April the 9th this year, I don't know if any of you saw a brilliant piece in 60 Minutes by Anderson Cooper. It was called Brain Hacking. If you haven't seen it, Google it, look it up. What Anderson did was he shared with everybody how Silicon Valley is changing our brains without us really realizing it. He had a series of people who he interviewed who started explaining the way programmers think when they're building their apps. And let us not forget that a programmer is rewarded by how often we go back to the app, and when we're on it, how long do we stay on it? There was a quote from Ramsey Brown, the co-founder of Dopamine Labs, a computer programmer who now understands how the brain works, knows how to write code that will get the brain to do certain things. There's a guy called Tristan Harris, who was the key person who Anderson was interviewed. He was with Google. He went rogue because he saw what Google were trying to do to us. And he said, every time I check my phone, I'm playing the slot machine to see what did I get. This is one way to hijack people's minds and create a habit. Hijack people's minds and create a habit. This is what's happening to us without us realizing it. And there was another quote from the lovely Sharon Begley, who wrote this beautiful book, Train the Mind. And she said in the book, inadvertently, whether they want it or not, programmers are shaping the thoughts and feelings and actions of people without us truly realizing it. What are we going to do? How do we actually solve for this? Because, as Gabe Zigerman said in Anderson's interview, asking technology companies, asking content creators to be less good at what they do feels like a ridiculous ask. And Sharon goes on to talk about these machines. They become like a substitute of memory and other brain functions. Is that good for us in the long run? Do any of you know what LMGTFY stands for? No idea? Let me Google that for you. How often when we're having dinner, or we got our kids, or with friends, do we go and say, let me Google that? Our brains have stopped functioning for themselves. We've stopped learning. This is our machine of learning. Deloitte came out and said, we check our emails a minimum of 46 times a day. Smart Insight said that we spend 87 hours a month just on apps and looking at the apps that we have. There's a brilliant study out of Harvard by Dan Gilbert and Matthew Killingsworth that says that 46.9% of your time today you will not be focused on what you are doing. So imagine what it's like for me standing up here in front of you knowing that 46% of the time your mind's elsewhere. But imagine something even more powerful. What would happen if we were able to bring that down to 35%? Some questions. How many of you this week, it's Thursday, Monday through Wednesday, were on the phone and doing emails at the same time? We all are, every day. But we're not present at either. How many times have your kids, your loved one, your partner said, hey, you're not listening? Or have we thought, as we're talking to somebody, why am I talking? They can't, they're not listening. And how many times have you walked in and out of your boss's office and said, well, that was a bit of a waste of time. I wasn't heard at all. Why am I spending so much time talking about the case for change? Because I believe that if we want to change our organizations, if we want to bring purpose into our organizations, the first thing we have to do is to state the case why. Most of us, if we're working for a corporation, our business has never been better, our share price is the highest they've ever been, we've all had a bonus in the last 3 years, why change? Imagine how we could have more productive meetings if we could get that focus down to 35%. Imagine how much more relevant our conversations would become. And wouldn't it be great if we truly felt we were being listened to? The person who has been my inspiration in this journey is Professor Richard Davidson. He's out of the University of Wisconsin. He's at the Center for Healthy Minds. And in 1982, he was challenged by the Dalai Lama, who said to him, all of you brilliant neuroscientists are focusing on anxiety and fear. Could somebody focus on what creates compassion and kindness in the brain? And he has devoted his life to actually solving that answer. And he was the one who really convinced me that the first thing we have to do is to learn how to become more present. That is the building block of everything we do. And whenever I hear people talking about empathy, and we want to become more empathetic, I say, no, you've got to come back first. You have to focus on how to be more present. Transforming your skill and attention will require practice. But because attention is the building block of so much else, I believe it is worth the effort. He's actually scientifically proven, too, that a healthy mind leads to a healthy body. His vision is, within 5 years, you know when you fill out your healthcare form, it says, do you smoke or not? He believes passionately that he will scientifically prove that there will be a question, do you meditate or not? And if you push that you do, you'll have a cheaper health insurance, because it's proven that we can do it. And in fact, he says that well-being is a skill that can be learned and should become part of your personal hygiene. One day I was with him and I said, how do I start? It's so scary. What should I do just to start? He said, I'm just going to tell you 5, 3, 1. He said, just start with this. Start with 5 minutes of meditation a day. He said, when you go to bed, have a book where you can write 3 written notes each day of good things that happen to you. And he said, 1 written note of an act of kindness you received, gave, or noticed during the day. 5, 3, 1. And he said, if you practice that, you will start noting a difference in the way you're living your life within 45 days. I started, that was how I began my journey. And I'm truly blessed that I have so many ex-colleagues, friends, who look at me and say, John, you've changed. And I've changed because of Richie Davidson and the work that he's doing. I saw this come to life in a company in Chicago. I was fortunate enough to live there for 20 years, and I lived in Old Town. And in 1995, a running store opened up on Wells and North Avenue called Fleet Feet. And I started going there, and I saw the business grow, and I saw the business grow. And about 7 weeks ago, I was looking for more inspirational stories about truly empathetic companies. So I went and sat down with the CEO, Dave Zimmer. And I said, tell me your story. He said, well, it started in 1995 with my first store, and it was 1,400 square feet of love. I couldn't believe he said that, knowing I was coming here today. But he actually described his store as 1,400 square feet of love. He said, here's how we do it. We start by listening. His best salesman, he says, as soon as people come into the store, the first question he asks is, what's your story? He asks, are you a marathon runner? Are you a sprinter? Do you want these shoes for walking? What activity are you going to do? The next thing they do is they ask you to walk. They ask you to run. They watch the way you walk and the way you run. Then they act. They go and find the shoe for you. You are not allowed to go in there and say, I want a blue shoe. You're going to get the shoe that is actually going to fit you. And the last bit of their experience, and by the way, they have another lovely thing. When the server, the salesman goes to find your pair of shoes, he introduces you to the person next door. So you have somebody to talk to. You know that horrible wait in the shoe shop? They actually introduce you. And he said, the last thing we do is we sit down before they run out and we plan. We ask them about what's their routine going to be. We go through some safety things. We recommend running clubs based on what they're going to be doing. They listen, they watch, they act, and they plan. That was the first time I really put together being present and empathy and actually driving business. He's an incredibly successful store. His goal, though, and what he says to everybody, he just wants people to leave the store with a smile. He trains his people, but he doesn't keep them to a script. That's so unauthentic. He also says, I look at each of the people who work for me as delivering the ultimate customer service experience. And what are his results? First of all, he's the highest revenue store of the 167 fleet feet around the country. But look at these. He has an 80% retention of his staff. He's got 26 months, which is huge for retail, of annual tenureship. 40% of his employees are 4 years or more. And look at that. 89% NPS score. All of us would love to be able to do that. But he also said he knows of 26 marriages of people who started and the first time they met each other was through an introduction at Feet Stores. Isn't that beautiful? That is true love and how love comes to bear. I asked him, do you have a purpose? And he said, yes, the purpose is to help you find the right fit in every facet of your creative lifestyle. And that was when I really saw the whole light between presence, empathy, action, and purpose. And it's the purpose that is the ribbon that you tie around everything you do. I was fortunate enough to work for an incredible company for 35 years, Hyatt Hotels. And in 2013, we tried to bring purpose to life. And we launched Human Care, Human Spirit. We had a general managers meeting in Orlando. We felt the meeting had been incredibly successful and that the company was set on its path for glory and change. And within 3 months, we realized we'd failed. And we'd failed because none of us had changed our behavior. We were fortunate enough to have a chairman in Tom Pritzker and a CEO in Mark Oplamazian who could have made the decision, become a commodity. Let's just commoditize our business. Let Hilton and Marriott have a bid for us and we're out of it. But they didn't. They did the exact opposite. They said, double down. Figure it out. How can we actually create the change and be different? We went back and we went back out and we asked everybody around the world, what should we do? How should we do it? The first time we did it was top down. The second time was bottom up. We came up with what our true purpose was as a company, to care for people so they can be their best. But then we spent a lot of time really making sure we understood what the word care meant. What did we mean by people and to be at their best? I was so excited on September the 26th this year. Mark Oplamazian was on Fox Business News being interviewed by Maria Barritolo in the morning. And during this interview on a business channel, he mentioned the word care 3 times, he mentioned the word mindfulness twice, and he mentioned the word to be their best, to care for people to be their best 3 times. So here he is, a serious businessman about profit, but on Fox Business, talking about to care for people to be their best. So what I'm saying is that when you go back to work on Monday, start with a case for change. Start thinking about, why do we have to change for ourselves? And it is only through that that we can start saying to ourselves, how do I become more present? How do I bring people more present? Because that will create the empathy and the compassion, and then bring the purpose to life once we're done. We're fortunate enough to have in the room today a man called Adam Shaw, quite brilliant at what he practices. He has helped Starbucks, 3M, Netflix. Oh gosh, I'm looking at him right now. I need a couple more that he's done. Companies, big companies, figure out what is their purpose and how to bring it to life. How to change corporate behaviors, leadership behaviors. And this afternoon, we're going to have a very interactive workshop. And we only have one goal this afternoon. And that is to give you tools that on Monday, you can walk into the office and start practicing. And we're so lucky that actually Adam's giving you open book. He's sharing with you every trick of the trade that he has. And he's giving you copies. So that you can ultimately go back and bring more love to the world. And with that I say, namaste, thank you.